Hey everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. This video series is about how to prepare for your trip to Southeast Asia and what to expect.
We'll cover topics such as security and safety, animals, weather, health, road safety, how to rent and use motorbike in Southeast Asia, as well as what to pack for the trip.
So let's dive in.
Let's dive in. On to general advice, and let's start with a safety word. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but we actually advise you, and this is something that we adopted after our Probolingo incident, to have some phrase or a word that only two of you would recognize as something triggering the safety protocol. So we didn't have a super detailed safety protocol, but we just agreed after Probolingo. We defined our nicknames that we will not share in here because we still use them. That if we switch from our true names to our nicknames, this means that like if I call Ulises not by his real name but by something else, he knows that it means that I don't feel comfortable with the situation, or I just want to pay his attention to something that is happening, and we're basically like, okay, this is the moment to kind of switch from I'm just being a tourist and enjoying my life to I need to double check if everything is okay, if I'm not getting into trouble, or like if someone is not trying to hurt me. This situation, Probolingo, as uncomfortable as it was, served us for the later part of the trip, because this helped us to define this safety protocol and how we will keep each other updated on it.
Could be an alias, or it could just be some other word that you both agree that if it's said, then you should change gears, maybe be on alert, try to remove yourself from a situation. So I think that we also played around with a word that we thought, if one of us said, we would then be like, try to react in a way that, got us to safety if we find ourselves in a tricky situation. Remember to pick something that isn't too common. So maybe not the word banana or something, but something that you both know, and that that if one of you says it, then you should probably react and move away to safety.
Also cannot be too weird. Something that like really, when you say it out loud, people are like, okay, this is not something normal to say. So others will also start paying attention if you say something weird. So a word that is not too common, but also not too weird, that you can put normally in a sentence, and then your partner right away, or like your group, will know what you're talking about, but others will not. Haha, you need to learn to be a spy.
Another tip is lean on your partner's strengths. I think that's something that stood out when we were in Probolingo, was negotiating the already high rate for the bus that we ended up taking up to Mount Bromo. I think that Kasia did super well in terms of negotiating with the driver and trying to lower the rate, because it turns out that we should have paid one price for a seat on a bus, but we ended up paying for the entire bus because really no one was there taking any bus all the way to Mount Bromo. So Kasia did a super good job at negotiating with the driver and trying to bring that price down. Another example was when we were at Mount Bromo already and looking to go up the King Kong Hill, I think one of the mornings for the sunrise. We thought it would be easy to walk, but then we saw it was far, and we decided to grab a scooter or scooters to go up to King Kong Hill, or at least most of the way. And I think that, early morning, there weren't many scooters around, and Kasia found a couple and managed to negotiate, bringing the price down to get us up to King Kong Hill, and then also on the drive back down. So I think she did a super job at that when we were there.
What Uri is good at is requesting the service as was promised. I usually would just give up and be like, this is not that important, we can go for a lower level, we are here on adventure anyways, and so on. But he has this capacity of being like, no, this is what we kind of paid for, or this is what we planned for, this is what they promised to us, so we need to they need to deliver. And the same thing happened when my headphones were stolen. I literally admitted on the spot being like, I must have misplaced them, or I lost them probably. We are already tired, we're traveling for over a month now, we're basically exhausted, it's so easy to misplace an object so small as AirPods. But he was really thorough. He said you never misplace things, which is true, and we always know when things go, which is also true. This is what we talked about in this video. So he was the one to go to the lobby and ask at the front desk being like, hey, we think something was disappeared from our room. I was behind being literally oh my God, Elisa's don't make a fuss about it, but because of the camera footage and our very fast reaction, we were able to find basically what happened is they said like, yeah, we have cameras, here's a tablet, here are the recordings, you can like switch between angles. So they showed us how to choose different cameras. So we found the cameras that was literally looking at our door. And we watched the 24 hours at speed 16, I think, of recording of our door with nothing happening. And then at very one moment, there is the, unfortunately, the cleaning lady who comes by our room and enters the room, even though we said at the lobby that we do not need cleaning and we do not want anyone in the room. And she walks out, unfortunately, like, I don't want to say it this way, but like walks out with this suspicious face. And even then I said, Uli, you know, like, this is the worst thing ever. You know, everything is always put, like, the fault is always on the poor people, like cleaning lady. But Uli's like, okay, we can just ask. We can just say that this is what we found and maybe they can double check. And they double checked and she admitted that she stole them. And a few hours later, she returned with the headphones. So always understand what is your strength, your own strength, and what is your partner's strength or the group strength. And this is how we learned actually during this trip to basically say, I'm taking over. Like, something is happening and this is my strength, so I take over. And Ulises is trusting me and I'm trusting Ulises that like he will get us out of the situation. And this worked really well during this trip and works for us in life obviously as well. Because depending on the situation, like, this is a beautiful trip, a beautiful adventure, but sometimes, well, you really need to lean on, okay, how we get ourselves out of this mess. Another good tip is to always have a plan of what you're going to be doing this day or in a specific place, and have a plan B or be ready to change the plan depending on how the day unfolds. This also goes to doing like having default roles for each of you. So for example, with us, we knew that like every single day, mostly Uli was responsible for charging the phones and the batteries. We had a lot of electronics and different gear. We had phones, we have cameras, including like a professional Sony camera and a GoPro. All of this required a lot of charging and so on. So making sure that everything is charged, because we use it during the day, obviously for our leisure recording, but also for emergency situations where we, for example, had to check our location or if we had to send an emergency message. So having roles like this is really, really helpful, but then also scan the room at all times and be ready to change your plan. And this happened to us several times when we were like, okay, maybe this is not the best idea. Like, we don't really want to visit this place because of some circumstances that changed. And a situation like this happened to us in Vietnam.
Yeah, specifically in Hanoi. In Hanoi, I think one of the afternoons when we were walking back from a bit of sightseeing, I think I had just finished getting ice cream. I'm not sure, but we were walking down the street. The streets are super busy in Hanoi, and we noticed, or one of us noticed, that there was, you know, a man following us, and I thought that was kind of strange. So we're walking down a bit, and I said, hey, let's go into this shopping mall for a bit. And we walk in, and we realized that the man was continued following us into the shopping mall. You know, at some point, I thought like, okay, cool. Well, it seems like this guy might be following us for some reason. I'm not sure why. We, again, were dressed in like very simple clothing, just our bags. Nothing, you know, really to say like, hey, come after us. So I think that, I don't know if it was Kashu or me, but one of us stopped to tie our shoes to see if like the guy would fall back. And then it ended up that he did, because also the shopping mall wasn't as busy to kind of like have him or us get lost in the crowd. So it was like obvious if he like stopped like right behind us that, you know, he was, you know, looking at us and trying to follow us. So, you know, just be alert, be vigilant, because, you know, different things can happen, and you need to be able to adjust as you go.
Yeah, and just like really to wrap up on the situation, we really do not know what this man could potentially want from us. It was like still day. We're on the streets or in the shopping mall. There are people everywhere. Was he trying to pickpocket us? Was he trying to... Yeah, and it was really obvious that he was following us because we tried to lose him several times and he was still on our backs. But like with this vigilance and with this really abrupt action of like, okay, we stop and pretend we look for something on the floor. We tie our shoes and stuff. There was no other way for him just to let go. And we actually waited for this man to... Like, we waited a few minutes to make sure that, you know... Again, it would be too obvious for the person to stick around. Good that we stayed vigilant. At the same time, well, we were a little bit uncomfortable for the next half an hour, let's say, but nothing serious happened. Mm-hmm. But because we stayed vigilant.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing to keep in mind is if anything were to happen, make sure to pause and sort of recalibrate, right? For us, I think that meant that after the incident with Probolinggo and Mount Bromo, and then ending up in Malang as a result of all of that, we decided we had to quickly kind of see where we would stay in Malang, and we ended up choosing a hotel chain that is quite well known, and we had already stayed at, I think, and you kind of expect that, if you stay at that hotel once, the experience will be similar if you stay at that same hotel in another location. So we chose that hotel specifically because we knew what to expect, and we also knew that if anything were to happen, the hotel would be secure, and we would be safe in that specific location. So after that, I think 24 to 48 hours that we had at Mount Bromo, we said we needed this so that we can kind of like reset. So we enjoyed our stay there. We knew what to expect, and it just gave us a moment to kind of breathe and kind of recover from what we thought would have been a dangerous situation coming out of Mount Bromo. So if something does happen, make sure to take the time to pause and reflect. And yeah, I would definitely recommend that.
Also, it goes to general safety rules, not only in Southeast Asia but everywhere, but we found this particularly important during our trip, is to be comfortable with over communicating, and especially communicating discomfort, and it has many phases. When you're not comfortable doing something, make sure that you're comfortable sharing this with your group or with your partner. Even though sometimes you agree to do the activity, you still, the partner or the group knows that maybe you were the one that needs extra care during this activity. So there are several situations for us. For example, I don't like monkeys, and we visited Monkey Forest. Uli loved that activity, but he was kind of guiding me through it, and especially when monkeys were approaching, he made sure that I'm not too close to the monkeys, and he kept me safe basically. And the same for Mount Ijen. Uli was not too sure if he wanted to do this, but I really wanted to do it, so we kind of agreed that we will do it. But I was, as we were going through the activity and seeing blue flames, was absolutely stunning. But at the same time, I was like, okay, maybe we should abort the mission. Maybe we should make this experience shorter to make sure that the other person is also comfortable and can get to the end of the activity safe. Basically, this is the most important part, especially because we're in a new context with maybe people who are excited, or guides or locals who tell us this is amazing, you should definitely try it. It's very easy to get into the pressure, the social pressure, or just general excitement. It's easy to freeze or just follow the crowd if you do not feel comfortable. It's better to say something that I find easier. Just say hey, let me stop and think about it for a minute, because sometimes saying no is oh, what are they gonna say? Or maybe people do not say no as an answer. Stop for a second and think about it. It's probably the best idea. Also, trust your gut feeling. There's a lot going on. There will be people pulling you in different directions, sometimes leisurely. If you're feeling that this activity or this thing is not going in a good direction, it's good to abort the mission. There were times when we were okay, sometimes jokingly and sometimes not that jokingly, saying abort the mission. So if you practice it and you get comfortable with saying this, then whenever the situation happens, it's easier to say hey, I'm not comfortable, or you basically learn to read your partner and you say okay, he says he's comfortable, or I say I'm comfortable, but you can clearly say that we are not, and this is maybe also a moment that they're not comfortable for a reason. So trust this feeling. It's really good to follow it, and it's really sometimes something that is keeping you safe on a trip.
Your security and safety must be thought throughout your trip. It's something that you need to practice and make sure that you're being mindful of. If you practice it, then it'll become automatic, and you can really get into the habit of just double checking everything that you're doing, and every route that you're taking, every activity that you're going on, and so on. We, for instance, double checked every time we left our room with our big backpacks and so on, making sure they were secured wherever they were, making sure that things were put away and that they were out of sight for anyone who might be interested in just taking a look at our belongings, right? Just make sure you double check.
And once you have this safety protocol, you just stick to it. It avoids the situation of, should we? Is this a safe place? Maybe this place is not that, you don't double think it anymore. It's just we always do it. This means that every single day before we leave the room, we add a buffer of at least 10 minutes to double check everything, to pack our things, and so on and so forth. And this way we do it every single day without questioning it. And this gave us comfort of enjoying our day, because we didn't have this, we're not burning our energy of thinking if this is actually a good idea or not. We just stuck to it no matter where we were, even in a very, very nice hotel in a very safe space. We just did it automatically and never thought about it again, and then we could just enjoy our day. And in short, these are a few tips that we followed for our own safety. And just so you know, we only had minor issues, and thankfully our trip was mostly, pleasant and without any troubles. But let's face it, you cannot prevent or predict every possible scenario, so preventing it or anticipating or just thinking ahead makes this entire experience easier.
And really, we hope that just by sharing these few tips, we can help you plan your trip to any of the wonderful countries that we visited in Southeast Asia. And of course, we hope that you have an amazing time. And with that, we'll see you in the next video.
Okay.
Should we move it up?
Why don't we take a look at what this video looks like on my laptop?
Let's do this.
Okay.